Hi, everyone. It's me, Tim. And today I want to talk about focus groups because I have a love hate relationship with focus group testing. And I've had this for decades. They weren't used much in the 80s or 90s, got really popular in the 2000s, 10s, and now the 20s. So let me tell you a little bit about what a focus group is, and then I'll tell you why I like them, and then I'm going to tell you why I hate them. So, focus groups are when people are invited and sometimes paid to come in and play a version of your game and give feedback. Sometimes that feedback is undirected. They're just asked, "What'd you think?" Sometimes there's a Q&A where someone very objectively and unemotionally will go, "What did you think of inventory? What did you think of combat? Did you enjoy the story?" And just see what people said. Interestingly, focus groups are almost 100% publisher done, publisher handled. Publishers want them. They I sometimes view it as they're not sure their own opinion on the game. So they figure, hey, let's get a bunch of people to play it and see what their opinion of the game is. I think it also comes from marketing, where a lot of times this is done, you're testing a new Doritos flavor. So you get a bunch of people to come in and eat Doritos. Let me tell you why I like focus group testing first, because there's some really good stuff that has come out of focus group tests. Both of the things I like about focus group tests comes from the fact that the group is recorded. And they're recorded in two different ways, which lead to two different things I love about focus group testing. One is very obvious. They're videoed. They're often even told they're video, and they're like, there's the camera, or the camera's right above the computer. So we can see their face, and then there's a recording made of them playing. So we usually see a screen of what they see in the game, and then their face is inset at the bottom so we can watch that. What we usually use these for, and this is a great use of focus test, we watch them to see where they get confused or frustrated or even angry, because this tells you where you need to direct your efforts. Frequently UI does this. People are like, I hate this inventory system, or I don't understand this pop-up, or I don't know what those little sparklies around the icon mean. And this can be used to instruct your group. Hey, we need way better tells. We need way better interface iconography. Sometimes people will get frustrated in narrative. They'll find NPCs to be annoying, or it's not obvious what the NPC's trying to tell you, or it's not obvious what they're supposed to be doing in the storyline. Or sometimes they feel too directed in the storyline, and they're like, I just wanted to explore this area, but I was told I had 2 minutes to get over to the other side of the map. Or they made it sound like someone was dying if I didn't move right then. So you sometimes get feedback like that, and you can talk about it, especially if a lot of people in the focus group give that feedback. The other thing I love about focus groups, and this is a way that a lot of people who are in them don't know how they're being recorded. We call them heat maps, so that's what I'm going to call them. They may be called something different at different companies, or they may be called something different now. But a heat map is basically the game logs the player's position every time an event happens. The most basic heat map is whenever the player moves, it logs that location, the new location. What that lets you do is it lets you look at a zone in the game and see where people tend to go. And if there's more dots in one area, you can make it brighter. Some people color it. And you can see, well, people spend a lot of time over here. People rarely go here. We did one at Carbine, and it was awesome because there was a place we were planning to put an instance later, a dungeon instance, but you had to either fly to or get an NPC to take you to. And we did a focus group, and some woman got up there. And I'm like, what? How did she get up there? And because we had the trail in the heat map, we saw what happened was there was a cliff face that was slightly angled, but it was way too steep to crawl up. But there was a rock here and a smaller rock here. She jumped here, and then she could just barely jump to the top. And I'm like, oh, we never thought that anybody would get there. We need to fix that. So you can have other heat maps too. A really common heat map is where whenever a player dies, you put a dot, because then you may see a zone and there are some light dots everywhere, and then there's a heavy concentration of dots right here. And you find out a level designer dropped a level 30 creature in a level 5 zone. Now, it doesn't mean you got to delete it. You may even like that, but it may mean, hey, maybe we should telegraph that. Maybe the only road into that valley should have an NPC saying, be careful, there's a Gorgon in there, watch out. Just so some players will go, I'm not going to do that. Some other common heat maps are whenever the player loses hit points, whenever combat begins, whenever a player finds an item. And then you can get this wonderful visual of here's a dungeon or an outdoor zone, and you see this concentration of where, well, that's where players tend to get most of their items, or this is where players tend to get money, or this is where players get legendary items. You can record any event you want, and in fact, often you log all of those into an external log file, and then heat maps are generated from that. So you don't think of it as it's writing out pixels into a map. It's just logging events into a file somewhere, maybe a SQL file, maybe a text file, and then later on you can generate all kinds of heat maps from it. That's what I love. I love using that. It's a very objective way of measuring people playing your game. So why do I hate focus groups? Let me tell you. First of all, most people don't know why they like something or hate something. They think they do, and they will tell you at length why they like it or hate it. But many times they don't know. They don't. Or the reason they say they like it or hate it doesn't seem to be the real reason they like it or hate it. Because keep in mind, some people will love or hate certain features no matter what. If you love crafting, you may play a game and go, I love crafting. I love the crafting in here, even though the crafting UI is terrible and none of the crafting items are usable or any better than things you can find in the world. Some people love it. They're like, oh, I just liked it because I could dye it black because I like having my character wear all black clothes. Okay, not exactly what you wanted to get out of your crafting system, but I'm just telling you what they say they like. They don't know why they like it. Many, many people fall in that category. Also, people will often, intentionally or not, spread that feeling to other unrelated features. They may play your game, hate the combat in it, and then start complaining about other things that have nothing to do with combat, and you're not even sure they dislike it. They got so frustrated by combat that now other features are making them angry. They will often contradict other people in the focus group. You have one focus group playing the same version of the game. Some of them loved combat, some of them hated it. They're even sometimes give the same reason. Oh, I hated it because it was turn-based. Oh, I loved it. Finally, I got a turn-based game. I love turn-based. Okay. Sometimes they contradict themselves. They will say something like, I hate it when a game handholds me. I hate it when it tells me what to do. Oh, by the way, you don't have quest markers on your map. You need to add quest markers. And you're like, ugh, what do they want? Sometimes people on your own team will cherry pick focus group comments to support their own ideas or to criticize other ideas in a way that always amazingly corresponds to their own design wishes. And I've seen this happen. It might be people on your team, it might be people in management, it might be people at the publisher, but they always say, oh, see, I told you they wouldn't like combat. Yeah, one guy out of 50 focus testers didn't like it. Which leads me to another thing. Sometimes people don't mention what they like. They only talk about what they didn't like. And then there's the other people who only say things they like. And they're too polite or sweet to say anything they didn't like. So sometimes you have to listen and go, okay, no one's saying they like combat. Is that because combat is good or avoidable? Or is it really bad? UI is terrible that way because, and I feel bad for UI artists and programmers and designers. When UI is really good, a lot of people don't mention it. The only time they mention it is when it's frustrating them. So, again, you have to be very careful how you look at comments from focus groups. But I think there's a personal reason that I tend to dislike focus groups. And this is me. I've talked about lenses. This is my lens. You can go back to interviews at Troika where I say, I make my games for me. I hope other people will like them. I really do, because you kind of want it to sell. But I usually made my games for me. That wasn't always the case early in my career. Someone else was in charge, and when I was 16, I didn't say anything. And then maybe on Bard's Tale and Rags to Riches, I would make a suggestion. But someone else had the final call. On my games, I was the final call. And I always had an idea of what I wanted to make. And I took ideas from other people, if they offered things, but they had to fit the overall vision of what the game was. And I've thought about this a lot to try to put it in the context of not games. And the nearest I can think of is if it's the difference between a singer who writes her own songs and a singer who has a songwriting staff. The first one seems to sing more from the heart. Their songs are more personal. The latter may get in the top 10 more often because they got a wide range of people writing songs for them. And some of them can be like, that's all they do is craft top 10 pop songs. And then the question subjectively is, which is better? It's hard to say which music is better. I mean, with the latter, is it even their music? Are they even good? Are they just a good performer? This is all very personal. It's very subjective. And I always said, personally, I just wanted to make my game. And I hope people like it. Once you start using focus groups too much, it becomes a committee. And I don't think committee games are really good. It doesn't matter whether it's a management committee. It doesn't matter whether it's a publisher committee. It doesn't matter that it's a focus group committee. Once you have a group doing groupthink on something artistic, whether it's a painting or a TV show or a video game, I think it becomes a lesser product. It becomes less particular. I think many of my games have a similar feel to them. And the ones that don't are ones that I didn't have the final say on. So Fallout and Arcanum, Temple, Vampire, Outer Worlds, they all kind of have this similar vibe to them because I made a lot of decisions in those games. Probably not as much on Bloodlines, but Leonard and Jason and I were all in the same ballpark. Anyway, I think focus group testing has its uses, but I think a lot of things I listed about not liking about it are kind of the dangers of using focus group testing. And whether or not you knew you wanted to hear it, those are my thoughts on focus groups.